you wrote The Handmaid's Tale in a pre-internet age, and I've read that you had press clippings with you about abortion outlaws in Romania and declining birth rates in Canada. How much did writing The Handmaid's Tale feel like an act of journalism? Did it?
Oh, well, the rule that I set myself for The Handmaid's Tale was that nothing goes in this that doesn't have a precedent somewhere in history or in real life right now. Going back and looking at some of the things that Hitler had done, for instance, they're very similar. He was a child stealer. He stole blonde children from Poland and put them with German families, hoping to augment the number of Aryans, etc. So these themes are they're human history themes, and they're particularly 20th century history themes. Quite a lot of genocide and rearrangement of populations went on in that century, and I can say that we're not finished with that.
Well, I've heard you say that before, that there had to be a precedent for everything, that this had to be within the human smorgasbord of things to do. Why was that an important rule for you? Because
I wasn't writing science fiction fantasy. I was writing speculative fiction like 1984, and 1984, as you know, is just 1948 backwards. So what he was describing was what he knew about the kind of thing that was going on in the Soviet Union. That process of show trials and so forth is basically what Stalin was doing in the 30s. I made it a rule for myself that I wasn't going to make stuff up.
I read that you said, it's the new novel, it scares me, but I have to write it.
These tendencies have been inherent in the United States since the 17th century. And when you have a foundational pyramid like that, it doesn't really ever go away. Central Americans, when they built pyramids, they would have a pyramid, and they wouldn't, if they wanted a new one, they wouldn't take that one down. They would just build on top of it, and then they would build another one on top of that. And you can see two tendencies playing themselves out in American history over time, and one of them is the tendency towards a fundamentalist theocracy, and the other one is a tendency towards a more egalitarian democracy. And you can see them going back and forth. So school children get told that the Puritans escaped from England to get religious freedom. That's only partly true. They did it to get religious freedom for themselves, but not for anybody else. And one of the next things they did was to persecute Quakers. We had the hippies, and we had the second wave women's movement, and we had the liberalization of a lot of laws in the 70s. In the 80s, there was a pushback. So the date of composition was 1984, when people were already talking about what they would like to do if they got the chance, which was to get rid of these liberalizing laws and turn things back to the way they were in, say, 1955 or 1855. So that was part of the scary thing. The other scary thing was, okay, I'm going to write this book, and then I'm going to get death threats and people will yell at me. So there were two scary things at work. One, this is a tendency that I am noticing that other people might not believe is happening, but I think is. And the other one was, therefore, I'll get in trouble.
Can you remember reading the first review in 1985?
I can't remember which review was the first one, but they varied from country to country. So in England, it was jolly good yarn, because they didn't believe this was actually going to happen. In fact, Europe didn't believe it would happen, because at that moment, the wall had not yet come down, the Cold War was still on, and those people all wanted to think of America as a beacon of light, hope, and freedom. And the idea that it could turn around and go the other way was just horrifying to them, and they did not wish to believe that. So the English, having done their civil war under Oliver Cromwell, their religious civil war, weren't about to do that again. And therefore they said, jolly good yarn. Ho, 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 Margaret, you're so inventive. The Canadians, in their nervous way, said what Canadians usually say. which is, could it happen here? And the answer to that is less likely, because Canada has too many diverse pockets of population. So there isn't a sort of monolithic Canadian set of religious beliefs, and particularly Quebec, which had been under the thumb of the church for so many years, and when they overturned that, they overturned it really quite completely, and they were not about to go back. So it would be hard to do in Canada. In the States, it was mixed. It was either this will never happen because we're beyond this, and how could you even think that we would do such a thing? And on the other hand, how long have we got? So some people said, how long have we got? Other people said, surely not. The people who said surely not tended at that moment to be older. And the people who said, how long have we got, tended to be at that moment younger.
The TV series launched 3 months after President Trump was inaugurated, 3 months after the Women's March on Washington. What did it feel like to have your work resurface and be reinterpreted in that climate?
So we knew, and on November the 9th, the election is the 8th.
Yeah,
November the 9th. Everybody in the show, and we were several months into shooting by that time, woke up on that morning and said to themselves, we're in a different show. Not because anything changed. Nothing changed in the scripts in the first season. But the frame was going to be different, and the frame was different. So instead of, look what we just avoided, people reacted to it as, here it comes. Everybody was very unsettled around that time. I think there was a very unsettled feeling. I think there still is a very unsettled feeling. And I think that the creation of chaos and the feeling of nobody can predict anything, I think that's deliberate.
Do you feel like the story you published 30 years ago is about to come true?
Do I feel it's about to come true? It's coming true in lumps. So it's like what William Gibson said about the future. The future is already here, but it's unevenly distributed. So there have certainly been really quite astonishingly extreme attempts made in some states to squash women's rights. Not all of them have succeeded, but some of them have. And you're going to see more of them. But as I said, it's lumpy. It's going to be state by state. I think you're probably okay in Los Angeles for the time being.
How long have people been asking you that question, and has your answer changed?
No, it's about the same. I think the United States is so large and diverse that it's not an automatic rollover. So if you have a much smaller, more condensed European country, it's easier to get your hands on, your totalitarian hands on all of the methods of news distribution. For instance, it's easier to shut down an independent judiciary. Not that attempts have not been made in this country, but I don't think people are going to roll over so easily for that kind of monolithic approach. And I think also that a lot of people have been galvanized by recent events who previously would have just said, oh, well, government, who cares about that? You know, it's nothing to do with me, I'm not going to vote. I think they have realized that this could, that unless they themselves participate in the choice of people who are running things, they're going to get run.
You've said that it has been both inspiring and unsettling to see a resurgence of interest in The Handmaid's Tale. Why is that?
Well, inspiring because it means that people are paying attention to what could happen, what some people would like to do to them, let's put it that way. Unsettling because, of course, you would much prefer when you write a book like this that it would act as a do not do this sign, and that people would then not do it. So that's what's unsettling. It shouldn't be a blueprint.
Your book was banned when it came out, and you appealed and wrote appeals. What did you say in those essays?
Okay, so I only wrote one essay of that kind. It was actually an open letter to a school board. And this was not a heroic story about me. It's a heroic story about some high school students whose school board attempted to ban The Handmaid's Tale in their school, but they wanted to read it and study it. And this was in the Texas Panhandle. So there was, fairly conservative surround to this story. And they argued their case to the school board, and they won. So for me, those people are, free speech heroes.